Welcome to the lab. This is the Bake Scientist channel where we explore the why so you know how. Today we are going to be exploring the why behind delicious, chewy, buttery sugar cookies so you know how to create these delicious treats in your own lab. Go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date on all delicious science cook-up in the lab. Now let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start measuring out our butter. And if you want to know how to use a kitchen scale or you want to know how to measure dry ingredients as we're going to be doing here today, go ahead and watch our baking basics video, which is up now. As is the nature of a scientist, my curiosity has driven me to want to test out a new hypothesis today. So for some background on sugar cookies use leavening agents to provide rise in texture to the cookie, which is typical of most cookies. But unlike chocolate chip cookies, which contain an acid, and by the way, if you haven't checked it out yet, we have a chocolate chip cookie video up that will go into details about the acid in the chocolate chip cookie. But sugar cookies don't have that acid, so their rise actually, when it reacts with the leavening agent, comes from the reaction of water and the leavening agent. And the water is coming from the eggs. So my hypothesis is that if a whole egg is used, then the sugar cookie will have a lighter and airier texture. So we will see if my hypothesis holds true. Usually I like to use an egg yolk in my sugar cookie recipes. They provide a little more richness and they have less water, so for me I feel it's less of a rise. So that's most eggs, the egg white is where all the water is coming from. So it's going to be interesting to see just how adding a whole egg will increase the water content will actually change the cookie. So now we're going to go ahead and add our eggs to our creamed sugar and vanilla and butter. So I added the whole egg to the bigger bowl, and I'm going to add the egg yolk to this smaller bowl here. And we're just going to mix these up, and then we'll add our dry ingredients into these bowls afterwards. So as you can see, the one with the whole egg is a little runny. So if we mix up this one here with the egg yolk, it's a little thicker. It's not as drippy as the other one, but we'll see how this turns out. So I'm just gonna add in, now we can add in our flour, and we're gonna add in all of our other ingredients. So our salt, our baking powder and baking soda, which is our leavening agents, and our cornstarch. If you guys are enjoying this content, please go ahead and subscribe so you can be on the know when new videos come out, all this fun science that we're getting into in the kitchen. Now we're going to go ahead and add our flour mixture to our wet mixture for both of the one with the whole egg and the egg yolk. And then we're going to actually sit this in the refrigerator for at least an hour, but preferably overnight. It's good to age your dough, and aging the dough just increases the flavors and it helps develop more caramelization when the cookie does bake. And it helps the flour to absorb more of the moisture so that you get more sweeter, tastier cookie. So we're just going to go ahead and wrap these up and stick them in the fridge. And while we let these chill and age a little bit in the refrigerator, we're going to go ahead and go into a science break. The two main leavening ingredients that are used in cookies and baking in general is baking powder and baking soda. Now, we already talked about baking soda in our previous chocolate chip cookie video, so please check that out. But so we're going to focus on baking powder. Baking powder is made up of sodium bicarbonate and sodium aluminum sulfate. And when you add a liquid, in this case it's water, it creates the reaction, and the outcome of that reaction is aluminum hydroxide and sodium sulfate, and also carbon dioxide. Now, carbon dioxide is where those air bubbles are coming from, where we get the lift and all the nice fluffy texture that we love in like cookies and cakes and things like that. So let's go ahead and do a small experiment so you can kind of see what the difference is between the baking soda and baking powder. So we're gonna just go ahead and put some baking powder and baking soda in these bowls here. So just a spoonful. There's the baking powder. And then we're gonna grab some baking soda as well and put it into the other bowl. Just another spoonful. Okay, and so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and take just plain old regular water from the tap. As you can see here, just some plain old water, and we're gonna pour it in and see what kind of reaction we get. So we're gonna start with the baking soda. So when you pour the water with the baking soda, you can see nothing really happens. It's just kind of sitting there in the water. No kind of reaction, no bubbles, no nothing. And if you remember from a previous video, if you check out the chocolate chip cookie video, you know what causes a reaction for baking soda. So let's go ahead and pour some water into the baking powder. Now, the second you start pouring this water in, you start noticing that it's foaming, there's bubbles, and it's making a little fizzy noises. That's the carbon dioxide happening. That's the reaction that we want for our cookies. All those little bubbles. So as you can see here, this experiment proves it. Shows that baking powder reacts with water, whereas baking soda does not. So they do have different purposes and different uses in our baking. So let's get back to our sugar cookies. So I've written on this parchment paper, one side for the whole egg batter or dough, and the other side for the egg yolk dough, so we can make sure we keep track of which cookie is from which batch. So we're just gonna go ahead and scoop out probably 4 of each, and we'll see. I'm using tablespoon scoops right here, so these are tablespoon sizes. You can make them however size you want. Just make sure to watch them in the oven and adjust your bake time accordingly. As I'm working with the whole egg dough, I'm noticing it's very sticky. So that extra water definitely is showing up here. And maybe in the future, if we were to repeat this experiment, we might want to add a little bit more flour or a little bit more of the dry ingredients just to see what the difference is with that. Because it's pretty sticky for it to be cookie dough. This egg yolk dough though, it seems to be normal cookie dough consistency. You can scoop and form it pretty easily without it sticking to your hands. There's a big difference just right out the oven. You can see the difference. And we're actually going to let these cool on the tray, on your hot tray. You want to let your cookies cool all the time. Always want you to let your cookies cool for at least 2 minutes before you remove them from the tray to a cooling rack. But as you can see, there's a big difference between the two different cookies here. We have a flatter one, wider one, and the ones that kept their shape, the egg yolks. So here's the cookies cooled off. Let's go ahead and test them out. Let's break some open and see what they look like. So this is the egg yolk cookie, the one that just had the egg yolk. And as you can see, it's nice and chewy and tender and very soft, easy to open. And this is the whole egg cookie. It's a lot flatter and it has a very different, it's very light, it's very not heavy at all, and it almost has a cakey like consistency, as you can see, and it's actually squishy. It's not even like has that crust like a regular cookie would have. And here is the final result. Delicious, chewy, buttery sugar cookies. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment below about which cookie you would prefer. This is the Baked Scientist channel, exploring the why so you know how. And until next time, happy baking!